Hey everyone, my name is Poisonblade and I hope all of you are doing well today. So for today I'm going to tour the Royal Palace of Bashar, and I'm already going to say this right off the bat. Might not be the best frame rate wise, because I mean we're looking at a frame rate killer already. And I am going to pass over some things because especially for some buildings or some builds, looking at the Maiden's Tower, the only commentary I would be able to give would be like, yeah, I liked building that and it's nice, and then, yeah, for some things I built them in like a sort of weird fever-like state. I mean, the Royal Docks that we are starting in right now is one of those places where it's just like, it's pretty, but I don't really have any other thoughts behind what I built here. But anyway, let's get moving. So we're going straight towards the frame rate killer. But yeah, the Royal Docks, I literally built them because first off, it's the only spawner that we have right now in this project. And because, I mean, it's the Royal Palace. They are going to have docks of themselves. I really like the clock tower. Well, clock tower, bell tower. I constantly still say clock tower. And then of course the fountain or water house. Hey. They're probably getting fat. But anyway, so... yeah. My proudest achievement, I think, when it comes to building Kayan al-Bashar, because the Royal Palace, or at least the Hagia Sophia, is basically two buildings. It's an inner shell and an outer shell, and because of the space in between them, I mean, I think these walls, I mean not at this point, but at most other points, are like a meter apart from each other. So that allows me to really just go insane with the roof. Sadly, the chandeliers are in the way from here. Maybe on the other side we can see it a little bit closer. I mean, I can't drop down there because I will have no way to get back up. But yeah. So there's an inner shell, which is basically what you see right now, and then the outer shell. And because of the space between them, things from the inner shell aren't like poking out on the other side. But yeah, this was a pain to build, but turned also into my proudest achievement. I mean, most of it is accurate, of course, the color isn't, and well, the Hagia Sophia in real life right now is a mosque, and this is a throne room. And I'm just going to say, if this is your throne room, and well, the throne room of Kayan al-Bashar is basically the entire size of the Royal Palace, or actually what the Royal Palace was going to be, because yeah, the Royal Palace of Bashar, unlike the Mirage Mountains, is basically a series of screw-ups. And we're going to eventually get to it, so I could go, you know, full on, just go through the entire courtyard, but I mean, I'm just going to go to the left. Also, yeah, this is like the first trial for like trying to have like the sort of, what do you call it, terraced like structure. I mean, I do like how it like elevates the Hagia Sophia. But anyway, so also yes, after finishing the Hagia Sophia, I mean, I went a specific way because I still know that there's one mud brick pillar that's just floating in there. And that's a common thing throughout Kayan al-Bashar. There's sometimes just mud brick pillars floating because I forgot to delete them. But going further, so we're eventually going to sort of return here, but this is the most logical way to walk everything in one go without going over things twice, multiple times. So, I mean, I've basically thrown this image in your face constantly because I really like the look of this place. So we're right now in Kaya village, which, yeah, just a note on the Elysian Fields. Probably going to look a little bit similar to this because lore-wise, Kaya village and the Atlas Hamlet are supposed to be somewhat similar to the Elysian Fields in that there's not that much water there, so Kaya village right now, as you could see, is the only one with an actual well. The floating islands all have mysterious water sources, but everything that's tied to the ground or is on like, well, on a mountain or just anything tied to the ground, yeah, that doesn't really have that much water. And also Kaya village is basically the ass end of the royal palace. I legit put that in the... No, I don't think I put it in the lore, but that's basically what Kaya village is. It's at the ass end of the royal palace. And so Kaya village is supposed to be like the place for all the servants to live, so yeah. Anyway, I also changed the... Well, this used to be a ruined watchtower, but I changed it into a shrine because, again, the royal palace is just a series of screw-ups that I had to tie together in a way, because I did not expect the royal palace to be this big or get this big, and we're very soon getting to the source of the screw-ups. But first, Grimelda's castle, which, yes, is supposed to be the castle of the evil queen from Snow White. I mean, you can see the window that she stares angrily out of towards Snow White. Yes, Snow White's quarters. Even though in Kayan al-Bashar lore, roles are kind of reversed. So, yeah, the most difficult thing about building this place is actually that balcony. Because I never really built a balcony that shape. But it's also pangolin habitat, but yeah. I don't think anyone really noticed the pangolins when you're seeing this. Also, another screw up. None of these towers really have windows. I mentioned in the previous tour with the Mirage Mountains, if you haven't seen that, go watch it, but watch it after this video, because otherwise I will just have to send my Secret Squirrel army to tie you to your chair and make you watch this video first. But, well, no windows. Well, this tower has windows, but most of the others don't. And it's actually kind of rare for me to not put in windows in towers, because that's one of the things that I usually do, like right after making the... what are they called? Forgot the name for it, but like the battlements. Anyway, going forward, so yeah, you will see this bridge a lot of times because just like with the Mirage Mountains and those wooden bridges, whenever I find a design that I like, I constantly keep using it. So yeah, I really just like this place. Also, for anyone who did watch the previous video with the tour of the Mirage Mountains, that's where we ended. But I didn't want to start there because then it would be in a really weird place and we would have to go over this area for multiple times. But this is basically the puzzle piece that never quite fitted in, and to this day still doesn't. So this is the Jaguar Habitat. Well, now I really see that I build things really huge, because this is supposed to be guest view and these pillars are huge. I'm just going to, you know, pan a little bit backwards so you guys can see it a bit more, but I built this habitat because I got early access to the South America pack, so I had to, you know, build something. But by this point I didn't really have the Royal Palace of Bashar really planned out, so I had no idea what I was going to do. And this is the one place where, like, the rest of the Royal Palace looks like a castle that has been transformed into a palace. This place is the exact opposite, because it looks like a palace that was transformed into a castle, which is exactly what I did. And yeah, it never quite fit in. To this day, like, I don't want to rip it out because it's, I mean, it looks beautiful, but it was really hard to make this place fit in, just because it's very rectangular, very straight on, and the rest of the royal palace is all like, you know, has a lot of angles and such, but then you have this straight gallery basically. And to this day I still don't think it quite fits in. It's still like the odd one out in the royal palace. But anyway, moving on, and well, here we have the first victim of the Jaguar Habitat, because the Grizzly Bear Habitat and Trader's Alley that's behind it used to be another habitat, which if you are a long time viewer you might know, but this used to be a habitat with like a huge lake and some floating gazebos juggled by some stone hands. And I really liked that habitat, but it was the decision between having that habitat or having the Jaguar Habitat. And the God's Lake habitat had to get cut out because it just wouldn't work. And again, yeah, the Jaguar Habitat is just really the odd one out. And going forward, I did learn my lesson with the Australia pack, that I didn't build anything for Kayan al-Bashar from the Australia pack, because, well, with the Australia pack I'll build like standalone builds, because yeah, it just, building something without a clear plan of what you're going to do will, at least for me this time, messed me up. So yeah, I mean, it's a great entrance, but it just doesn't really quite fit in. And now we have a Grizzly Bear Habitat that I completely forgot afterwards. So anyway, we have the Maiden's Tower here, but that's not really noteworthy, because again, this is a place where I'm like, oh, it's pretty, and I don't really have much to say about it beyond that. And Atlas Hamlet is basically the same. Do love the view you get on Mashaf Castle from here though. Like, Kayan al-Bashar is a lot of that. Just like you can look over there and you have a view of the fever dream come to life, because I have no idea how I went from simple castle gate to whatever that monstrosity is. Well, it's not a monstrosity, but it's, yeah, it's a weird thing. Again, another lookout, and this one, instead of the one in Karshenik, which was built before the Royal Palace was built, this lookout, I exactly knew this is going to look out on Mashaf Castle. And also something that I wanted to note in the previous video or the previous tour, but I mean, I didn't want to make it a 40-minute video. But the entire climbing structure that you actually have in Assassin's Creed is also in there. Well, it's somewhat different, but like, you jump off here, there are some bushes, and then you have to like go over some beams and climb up the tower to murder some Templars. Anyway, so we are going to Kane's estate. Need to know where the path actually goes, because I get, like, the Mirage Mountains, very easy to get through. It's one path and you are easily 1 point to the next. The Royal Palace is a maze, which I like. And then Kane's estate. I really love this build. Like, it's for me a lot easier to build something with a person in mind. We're just going to glitch through the gate here because why not? There's some stairs here, but building something with a person in mind can already give you like huge hints on how to have some personality in the building. So you can see with Kane's estate, I just assumed like, oh, he would like his privacy. So actually the front of the building is not facing the road because of that. Well, I don't think you guys have moved all that much. I mean, the one that was down here is basically in the same position as it has been for quite some time. But hey, he's pushing forward her ball. But yeah, building with a person in mind is really easy and makes it really fun because you can like somewhat integrate their personality in the building. So yeah, you can actually see like most of the building is facing the other side. It's not facing the street because I thought Kane would like his privacy. And also, this is kind of a thing that I constantly forget to do. Kayan was the first one to receive a chimney in Kayan al-Bashar. I mean, I just thought like with she-dog, like, you know, with a nice fire at the... what is a chimney? Not a chimney. Today I just constantly forget words. But you know, a nice fire, a good cup of coffee or hot chocolate. I actually don't really like hot chocolate. Mostly because I'm impatient and I will burn my mouth because I want to drink it immediately. So now we are in the Royal Vineyard, and while the Royal Palace itself is very chaotic, I mean, there's just a lot of things happening. Again, the Royal Palace of Bashar is just a series of screw-ups that I somehow tied together. But the Royal Vineyard was really... well, I can't really say planned out. Like, nothing in Kayan al-Bashar is really planned out. I just go with what I want to do that particular day. That's, again, one of the reasons why some places I'm just like, yeah, I really liked building that one day. And then I'm like, why again? And then some places are just like, it all went well in one go, and yeah, there's not that much to say. But the Royal Vineyard is just really peaceful, rustic. There's just, yeah, that sense of peace. I also have no idea, but the lions can't get over these fences. They should be able to, but they don't. But then the vineyard or the estate, for some reason I just like these a lot. Like the barrels. Like the rest, yeah, there's an actual wine press. I hope I don't get stuck on things, but for some reason I just like this one the most. Just barrels. And this is where my inner Dutch came through, because this is actually a Dutch bridge. Or at least you see these kinds of bridges a lot in the Netherlands, and I wanted to build it. And I mean, it's a tiny area, so then I just decided, screw it, I'm just going to build it. So this is a little bit Dutch. And then I could have put another spawner in here, but I just didn't. I mean, there was a mistake actually with the first spawner, or, well, where we started, because it's clipping through the ship. I didn't show you guys that. I also didn't show you guys the mistake in the Hagia Sophia with the random floating mud brick pillar, because I used those things to center things. But then I constantly forget to delete them because they are everywhere. So if I think I delete all of them, then there's still always one random one that's still there. Because I usually end up with a build where there's like 200 of those mud brick pillars. The barrels, or the barrel maker. I really like this build. And that's mostly because I like having like these, like making professions more visible. I mean, this was inspired from a building in anno 1404, if I'm right. I always get the dates a little bit mixed up. But I just really like making these, well, unnecessary things visible. And it worked with the Jaguar Habitat, and I'm going to say this again. People seem to love this barrel on a rope, but where is it? Ah yeah, this. The termite mount. The natural termite mount still doesn't work for aardvarks. It only works for giant anteaters. Still, it's a few months after the release of the South America pack. Well, a few months, but almost half a year I think. And it still doesn't work for any other animal besides the giant anteaters. So that's not really a mistake on my part, but more a mistake I think on Frontier's part. But then a fever dream come to life. Like this was, I mean, I had planned that, well, not planned, but these side towers should be that high. The gate and these towers and those towers are completely unnecessary, but sometimes you just get in a weird mood and just start building and you don't know where you end up with that. So, I mean, I like it because it's basically a citadel or castle in itself. And then this is, I think, the last addition to the Royal Palace of Bashar. It's these bridges between towers to connect the castle up. I mean, I really like the bridges, but they were, well, it's again like the same thing with some other bridges. I liked them, and so I started using them everywhere. So a lot of areas I just connected with these bridges. Also, 3 portcullises, completely unnecessary, but hey, you can't say that the Royal Palace isn't safe. But this was not really a screw up, but I just didn't have the energy anymore. But there should be more windows here. Again, the same with Grimelda's castle. I should have built more windows, but I didn't because I was tired. So yeah, the first gate, because this is a replacement gate actually, was a lot smaller, but the towers had to be this huge because these wings are original and I didn't want to replace those. So anyway, I think we should first head over to Trader's Alley, which besides the Royal Vineyard is my favorite place because I just really started to love building cities or cityscapes and farmlands. That's why the Elysian Fields, I really love building it because it's basically farmlands and the occasional village that I get to build. But, well, this part is really old. And then these pillars as well. None of this was actually built on camera, which, yeah. But this one, or this part is new, and again, inner Dutch coming through because this isn't... Yeah, you wouldn't find this anywhere in like Turkey or... Well, maybe you'll find it nowadays, but I don't think it's like original architecture besides in the Netherlands. But, you know, sometimes you're in a weird fever dream and you start building things that shouldn't be there. And also, yeah, can you see my favorite color? It's beige. I mean, this building is blue, but it's also mostly beige. But yeah, I just love building city, like urban spaces. There's a tiny bit of space here because this is supposed to be where, like, you know, the Royal Palace, it doesn't only house like the royal family, it also houses, of course, the complete court, so all the courtiers. So this is where like the supplies for the Royal Palace come in because, I mean, the royal dogs, those are only for the royal family. Well, royal family, I mean, the Hagia Sophia is in a way the most narcissistic build because I always imagine myself as the ruler of Kayan al-Bashar, which in a way is true. But then I'm also inserting myself as some kind of godlike being that's... Yeah, let's just say Kayan al-Bashar in its core is a very narcissistic build. Because I'm basically building my own little kingdom. And I mean, I actually wrote it in the lore that Shahrazade's tower, probably not pronouncing that right, but then really does. Like, first I built it as like the Sultana's tower, which still makes me think of a cookie, but now I just wrote her in the lore as a scholar who has not really any like ties to the actual ruler of Kayan al-Bashar. And yeah, I also wrote it in the lore that the Sultan can also be named the Emperor because I love the Byzantine Empire. Then the Royal Amphitheater, or just the Amphitheater, which, yeah, favorite thing is just these floating trees. Like, these are ripped straight from Guild Wars 2, because, or Guild Wars 2, also Guild Wars 1 Nightfall, where they have these floating trees which for some reason just give off a lot of water. And I only recently noticed this. Also, if anywhere in this video you saw a floating mud brick pillar, pretend it doesn't exist. But I recently noticed that one of the trees actually goes through it and you can see the roots. Yeah, sometimes again I build things at way too late and I'm in this weird fever state and I don't really make sense of anything. But, the tigers. I also hear an alarm. That's not good. Aww. He literally just clawed at her face and moved up. Yeah. Weird. Then some gates, because I love building realistic castles for some reason. Even though, like, Planet Zoo doesn't have, like, this is completely useless building. But that's Kayan al-Bashar in a nutshell. Useless, but pretty. Then, I'm sorry, Rudy. Like, this was my first attempt at making, like, you know, not huge statue out of rocks. It doesn't look right. I really plan to remake it, but by now I'm just like, it's nostalgia right now. Like, I waited too long and now I like the statue just because of how long it has been here. Even though I should have redone it because it's not the greatest statue, but it was my first attempt at making statues of this size. Also, yeah, he's judging us. Or she, I think it's a she because he looks smaller. Yeah, I think there is Rudy. Of course, the same thing with the floating caravanserai, which was a standalone build that I built while the first, like the truly first version of Kayan al-Bashar got corrupted. Name a camel Rudy and they just go wild. Oh wait, I should go back. But yeah, that's a thing that I had with the first version, or the floating caravanserai of Kayan al-Bashar. I named one camel Rudy and I literally just blinked and he had 5 babies. Yeah, he is on contraceptives. Or just, you know, didn't want that again. Then Shahrazad's tower or quarters. It's a rare thing to see the animals actually move in this habitat. I don't know why. I mean, it's rare that there's 2 ostriches here and no giraffes. Oh, 3 ostriches. But they rarely move. Like, they always just stand still. I mean, they also don't move really now. They don't walk. So I just have the thing that, or the idea that they are maybe camera shy and now are frozen in fear. Also the floating bugs. So just a, well, heads up. This was close to being ripped out. Because here's another screw up in the Royal Palace. Well, not really a screw up, but you can really see, like, compared to that, or the wings on that build, that the Royal Palace really underwent a transformation from being like really, well, I mean also with that habitat, but it went from like really inspired by the Alhambra in Spain to Constantinople. So trying again, like, the Royal Palace of Bashar is really just a place of screw-ups that I somehow tied together. The Jaguar Habitat, I mean, yeah, this, and then the Jaguar Habitat, I mean, on the other side you can see that it's like mostly just a rectangular gallop. And also these, well, this is the Grand Court, so this is like the sort of great gardens where I imagine all of the nobles and courtiers are just loitering around, scheming, plotting, throwing people off a floating island and that stuff. But building this place, by this point, Frontier had done an oopsie and basically made Kayan al-Bashar unworkable because you couldn't build habitats with like floating barriers, because most of Kayan al-Bashar is built that way, that I make a habitat that's like a little bit too large and then I place the barriers and then dig away underneath the barriers. By this point the South America pack had just released and they removed that option, like barriers had to be on ground, which basically made Kayan al-Bashar impossible to build, because then you would have to build fences all around these floating islands, which wouldn't look good. So this habitat was really just built because I didn't have the option to build a floating island. Also, yeah, there's random grass. because this habitat is kind of tricky. I mean, there's random dirt here. Also, yes, we're not stuck, luckily. Like, that's the thing with Digit Game and Kayan al-Bashar. You can easily get stuck on things. But these... Oh, this is the one time you see a giant anteater. There's also some capuchin monkeys, but they were getting so numerous that before Kayan al-Bashar got released, I took all of them out of Kayan al-Bashar, put new ones in, just because there were like 20 capuchin monkeys in here. That's the problem when you build and still have a decent frame rate, you sometimes forget to pause the game. And then some animals just go crazy. Looking at you, Rudy. But anyway, so these floating faces are actually a reference to the origin story of Kayan al-Bashar, or basically the story that I referenced Kayan al-Bashar on, or based it on, which is Iram, or the city of pillars, or the Atlantis of the desert. I always get the first name wrong. I always say Ilam, which I think is a province in Iraq. But in the original story, or at least I think it's the story that's used for Uncharted, I think it's the second Uncharted, where the city is buried in the desert and there's like a face or some kind of vessel which holds angry Jinn, and these faces are a reference to that. Although in this version, well, the city floats and isn't buried in the desert. But now we actually have made it a full circle. I didn't go really into the Maiden's Tower or Atlas Hamlet because well, I don't really have much to say on them besides them being pretty, and it's much more fun to talk about the screw-ups. I mean, again, just grass. Just sticking to the path, because like those are the tiny things that you sometimes forget. But I mean, I can go in here and show you the mistake that happens here. Floating mud brick pillar. I saw this one when Drew toured the place, and yeah, I also saw floating mud brick pillars when Aston toured the place, and I'm just like, oh god, I forgot that one. But there's like probably a million of those somewhere, and that I just forgot to take out. And then going to another screw up, which I also mentioned with the spawner. Also, for some reason, it took me ages to build this doorway. Also, court of autosave or a crash. But, well, Kayan al-Bashar has actually never crashed on me. And I'm still playing this on Ultra, which amazes people. Like, these are Ultra settings. But, yeah, this is really the time where I went all in. I digged up references or pictures of the old royal palace in Constantinople before the Ottomans took over. Also, yes, this is one of the few gates that actually have counterweights to actually pull up the, well, drawbridge, maybe also the portcullis. But just to show you guys one last screw up before we're going to end today's video or today's tour. That spawner. Can we see it? Can we see it? Don't think we can, really. But it is sticking through there. Ah, yeah, you can see it. There's the spawner. It's sticking through. Also, some of the ropes don't really work, but I never bothered to fix that. So we are back in the start, and I think I saw no copy running. I think, or it's another animal. But there's a sneak peek to Sunday's speed build. But anyway, that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I enjoyed it because I basically got to tell you guys about all of the screw-ups that happened in the Royal Palace. Because I will say this once and I will say it all of the time and forever. But the Royal Palace of Bashar is basically a series of screw-ups that I somehow tied together. And that will be it for today. So hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do and want to see more, there's the like and subscribe button, of course. And there's a bell button that sometimes works and sometimes it doesn't. Most of the times it doesn't. But anyway, Hope you enjoyed it, and I wish you all an amazing day. Bye bye, guys.